Okay, hello everybody, welcome to a new video. So in today's video I thought we could talk about the behavioristic perspective a little shortly on that, which we could say like the founder for the behavioristic psychology, the classic behaviorism, is John Watson. Might have been John B. Watson. Just gotta check so I don't get any names wrong. It was John B. Watson. So, as if you've watched my previous video, I think it was the most recent one, I've recorded too many videos and probably not uploaded most of what I've recorded and edited. I did mention the behavioristic perspective, and I think I might have explained a little bit on why I don't fully agree with it, which is also something I'm going to mention in this video, of course. But to start with it, the behavioristic perspective talks a lot about the environment, and John Watson has a famous quote that is saying that he could take a person, place them wherever in like the world, and mattering on where he is raised, where his upbringing were, which environment, like was it a richer neighborhood, was it a more poor neighborhood, like what class was the family, and all of that, you know, the environment that a childhood is in, that matters. Okay, so 1910, he introduced the perspective to the world, and he was from America. So the perspective is following the determinism, which I've mentioned before in my videos, but that is when you do believe that your personality and who you are is set during the childhood, which means that you, no matter what you do in the future after your childhood, when you're your own adult, you can't fully change, because who you are to become and who you are was already set in your childhood. So it's not changeable. But to add, there are perspectives that believe that human can change no matter the age, such as the humanistic perspective. So the environment is important, and we look at the environment and we learn from the environment. What we see, we learn from. So a Russian psychologist, I would assume he is, Ivan Pavlov, he did experiments with dogs. So he did an experiment where he took some dogs and he rang a bell, and to show an adult down, it showed that the dogs react on what they see and you can use classical conditioning to learn certain things. So like if you walk, and to explain more something that most of you might understand, like we walk out on a road and when the light turns red, most of us stop. So that is something that we learned, that red means to stop, while green means that we can go. So we have learned that and memorized that, and that's through classical conditioning. Same as that we might draw the resemblance between the smell of popcorn to the cinema. That's like also another example of classical conditioning. And you know, sometimes we do it with things that don't really have any resemblance between them, you know, they aren't really that alike, you know, because watching a movie and like the smell of popcorn isn't really the same thing, but still when we do the resemblance, which is classical conditioning. And classical conditioning isn't something that is ruled or set by our own free will. It happens automatically, so we don't have a say in that. which means that we can sometimes, you know, see or hear or smell something that makes us think about something else, you know. So I know that with trauma, this is something that can happen, or like with a person, you know, classical conditioning can happen. Maybe if you were wearing a certain perfume when something happened, like maybe when you first met a person, or during the time you met a person, or if maybe you were in an accident and then you smell the perfume and it takes you back to that moment. That is also classical conditioning. And they are pointing out through the behavioristic perspective that we are almost like robots, that we just do. It's like when we are out in the traffic, we see a red light, we stop, like we are robots, they would say. So we are kind of slaves under classical conditioning. We're sometimes afraid of certain things through classical conditioning because it's an humane instinct. So like if we are afraid of spiders or snakes or things like that, that is because in the past they were deadly for the humans, which is why we have that. And then we have operant conditioning, which is when our behavior or what we will do in the future when we are in the same situation as we just maybe were in. And then, you know, because due to the consequences, we maybe rethink and then we change how we will act the next time. So maybe if you have a test and you fail the test, then you will maybe not study in the same way as you did to that test. You'll change something because of the consequences, because they were that you did fail the test. It's one simple explanation. And it was invented by B.F. Skinner. So every time we do a certain behavior, like if you're out in society and you do something, you always get, or not always, but you get some kind of response from the environment, and due to that response, you change. You change to improve yourself so that you fit in maybe more in your environment. That's because that matters, because that's something that we humans do. Okay, then we have the fours, we could say. We have positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, and then we have positive punishment and we have negative punishment. So the reinforcement is when we get something. Maybe we get something that we've wanted. Or it could be negative reinforcement. When it's negative reinforcement, we get something that is maybe more heavy for us. Something that we don't want. I hope you're hearing me because it's raining a lot now, but... So, you know, we receive something. And either if it's positive reinforcement, we receive something that is good. But if it's negative reinforcement, we receive something that is a burden to us. And then we have positive punishment, and that is when something that maybe was a burden to us is taken away. We almost like we lose something. We give something is almost like taken from us. But with positive punishment, you know, it's good. It's positive. And then with negative punishment, it is when maybe something is taken from us and we wanted to keep that. We didn't want it to be taken away from us. So maybe like that could be if maybe your partner that you very much love is breaking up with you. Like that could be one example, you know, something is just like, you know, maybe saying up a friendship or like something like that. It's, or it could be really anything. That's something. Maybe you've planned a trip and the trip gets cancelled. So that is, you know, you had a trip. but then it's taken away from you because it got cancelled. So that is example of negative punishment, because I feel like that one can be a little bit more tricky to understand. And then positive punishment can be maybe if you had an assignment that goes away. So then, you know, it's when you're done with the assignment, it's away from you. So an example on maybe positive reinforcement. So that is when you receive something. So maybe you have, in work, it could be that you get a bonus or something like that, you know, something, maybe you get higher salary because you've worked really hard, like something like that, you know, you get something positive that's positive for you. And with negative reinforcement, it could be that, well, maybe if you fail the test, okay, then, you know, you need to do it again. So that's like, you thought maybe you were done with it, you thought that, okay, now it is positive punishment, I'm done with it. But then if you fail, it becomes maybe negative reinforcement because you have to do it again and you didn't, and you just want to be done with it. So the critique that I have from my Psychology 1 notes is actually only one small sentence, and that is, if this would have worked, we wouldn't have any criminals in our society. Because if we can place people and everyone listens to the environment of that, you know, that's one thing, like, we wouldn't have criminals. But then I know some things are that is very like a robotic view at humans, you know, that we aren't really humans, but we are like a doll, puppet doll, I think it's called. They even say that we can just control humans very easily. And, you know, this is a very simple theory, the behavioristic perspective, which is also negative because humans aren't that simple, because this theory is quite simple. Because now I went through like all of my notes from this perspective in this video now. So I didn't even, like, I said exactly everything that I have. So, you know, it's quite in a way small, but I know that there might be some other theories and all, but still, in generally speaking, the behavioristic perspective is quite simple. And, you know, it's just like, okay, humans work this way. This is how everyone works. But, you know, not everyone does stop when it is red. When there's like a red light and so on, you know, not everyone does that. Which comes also proves that it might not work. And, you know, just because some people learned, you know, maybe a classical conditioning regarding something, doesn't mean that everyone would learn that. You know, because every human is different. And that is some critique to the behavioristic perspective. Just kind of slightly, because, you know, you can talk more about how everyone is different and all that, you know, built onto that. Because they are claiming that the human is quite simple in a way. So that's behavioristic. Classic behaviorism. So, yeah, thank you so much for watching this video, and goodbye.